In this video, we're taking a look at the Godox SZ150R LED light on this tiny little tripod. The SZ150R is a bicolor and RGB LED light with 150 watts of total power that you can control with the app, DMX, or if you're old school, the controls on the back of the light. What makes this light even more unique is that the beam angle can be adjusted from 20 to 66 degrees with this knob on the side of the light. This is a bright light that can be used for a lot of practical applications, but it can also be used as a more creative light with its RGB color and scene modes. There's a lot of features of this light, so let's go over those first, and then I'll give you my personal thoughts and opinions at the end of the video. As a disclaimer, while researching this light, I reached out to Godox and they sent me this light to review, but they did not see this video before I posted it. They didn't tell me to say anything or not say anything, and all of these words are my own based on my experience using this light. Starting off with one of the most important features, the price. The SZ150R retails for $559 right now. For a brief comparison of where it falls in the Godox line of lights, the Godox UL150 sells for $390, but lacks RGB, zooming, and Bluetooth functionality. The Godox SL150BI is a bicolor light that sells for $409, but it can't zoom and it also lacks the RGB. The slightly more powerful Godox SZ250R retails for $459, has 50 more watts of power, is also controlled with the Bluetooth app, but it's only a bicolor light and it lacks that RGB functionality. For another comparison, the 180 watt Aperture 120D Mark II is $798. It is more powerful than the SZ150R, but it lacks the RGB functionality and it is $239 more than this light. Moving on to color outputs of this light, the SZ150R is a bicolor light and an RGB light. The bicolor light can go from 2800 Kelvin to 6500 Kelvin, and it has a green magenta shift of plus or minus 50 either way. My favorite part about this light though is the RGB light. Having the RGB light in a studio light is a great benefit where you're not needing to constantly switch out gels to get a specific color. You can use the app to control the color, intensity, and effects of this light, and it really makes it easier to use. But more on the app later. When it comes to the RGB mode, you can dial in the specific RGB hue, intensity, and then dial in the dimmer from 0 to 100 to get the exact color that you want. You can use the onboard effects to simulate some pretty unique lighting patterns as well. I enjoy using RGB effects more than just bicolor lighting effects. The RGB lights have access to the full spectrum of light, and the effects you get are a little richer than just the bicolor lights. With that being said, I really have to have a specific shot in mind to use any effects on a light though. It is nice that they're here and there are a lot of different effects to choose from, but in my usage with this light, I usually used it with 5600 Kelvin for just the regular talking head light that I use here, or I used a RGB value to add a little bit of a color to my shot. I didn't really use the effects, but there are some there, and in the app you can slow down the animation so they're not as jarring. But if you are interested in an RGB light, I would take my time and go through all of the effects and see which ones are useful to you. Speaking of the app, it allows you to have the ability to choose filters from Lee or Roscoe, but I wasn't able to get this to work. I reached out to Godox to see what they had to say, and I tried to find marketing that had the filters available for this light, but I couldn't find any. But it was still in the app, and when I reached out to Godox, they said that wasn't a feature that works with this light. But whenever I chose this light and then went to the filters, it just wasn't working. The option was there, but it just was broken. So again, they don't advertise this as a feature, but when you're using the app, it's hard to think that something's working when it's on the screen, but it's just unresponsive. Maybe this will be taken care of in a future firmware update with the app, but as of right now, all the features in the app are working except for the gels because they're just not supported. An interesting feature that is working though is the ability to shoot a photo and choose a custom color from that photo to display on the light. This is pretty cool if you need to match ambient colors and you're having a tough time dialing it in on the back of the light. It is cool that you can shoot a photo, pick your color, and then it will match your ambient lighting around it. And another feature that I was really excited about is the fan, or the fan noise, or the lack of fan noise. This light actually allows you to turn the fan completely off and have the light be silent. Just know that if you are silencing the fan, the overall output is capped at 35%. In my office, this light has been in a 32-inch double diffuse softbox, and I've been using it between 25 and 20%. So it was enough to be my key light at that low of a level, so I just always had the fan turned to silent. That being said, I do have a Godox SL60W, and that fan is always on, and I usually have that light going for my videos. To my ear, the SZ150R light is a little bit lower pitched of a fan noise than my Godox SL60W. That being said, that light has always been on, and that fan is a little bit louder to my ear than this fan, and it's been fine. So I don't have a problem if I need to crank the intensity over 35 to turn that fan on, and for the most part, my mic isn't going to pick that up. I left my microphone and my light in frame just to show you guys how close all of my stuff is, and having a light that I can silence the fan, even if the fan noise isn't that big of a deal, I feel like quiet is always better when it comes to audio. One thing that I didn't realize I was going to enjoy about this light is the fact that the screen on the back is so large. I was using the menu on this light, and all of the menu items are on one screen, and you can use the buttons on the back to scroll through all of the menu options really quickly, and pressing this allows you to actually select all of the menu options that you want quickly. It's nice to not have any lag on a light, especially an RGB light, because if you're dialing in a certain color and you find one that you like, if there's lag on the light, you can potentially miss it and have to go back and find the exact hue that you want. If as fast as you can spin these dials is as fast as the light responds, but also if you go slowly, the light will respond to those slower inputs. So it's pretty nice. Sorry if I blinded you guys, but I really did like the fact that the menus were snappy and all of the dials and functions of the light were also really fast. Another interesting feature of this light is the ability to zoom the front LED. The flood or focus functionality is not something that I have really explored in a lot of my lights. Specifically because I mostly use them in double diffuse softboxes. And if you are focusing the light, you are able to get a little bit brighter of a light in a smaller area, and flooding the light acts just like a normal chip on board light like you would expect to work. For kicks, I put this light in a softbox and I was flooding and focusing the light, and since my softboxes are double diffused, my softboxes were doing the right thing that they were supposed to be doing, and it was just making the light really soft, and it wasn't getting any harder or softer while it was in that softbox. So if this is really going to be useful if you're using the reflector with this light, I really don't use these lights for hard light, but if you do intensify that light with the reflector, there is a little bit of a difference, but it's not as much as a difference to be a spotlight where you're going to get a really narrow focused area. But if you need a little bit more light, like very high intensity product photography or something, where you just need a ton of light in a small area, this could be a good use case for that. The fact that this light has built-in Bluetooth means you'll be able to use the Godox Light app, and using the app allows you to turn the light on and off, adjust the color temperature, RGB values, and select scenes. It's one of my favorite ways to use this light because I can sit down, and especially for these YouTube videos, I can sit here and watch myself in my monitor and adjust my light exactly how I need it. The app is really nice if you're filming yourself or you have a small team and you don't have a dedicated light person. You can just use the app to control the lights for you. You can control the light with the remote as well, but that is a separate purchase. And I've got around this by just using the app, and it's worked great for me so far. One downside of using the app though is that you aren't able to dig into the settings deep enough to adjust the fan functions, like turning it on and off. I'd love if we were able to turn the fan on and off using the app. I haven't ran into a need to do this personally yet, but I know that the functionality is there and it can probably happen, so I would love to see that functionality brought to the mobile app. This isn't a huge deal, but maybe you're going to be using this light in an area where you need to be turning the fan on and off to maybe silence the fan or really intensify the light in different situations. If this fan is up in the air, you'll have to drop the light down and manually adjust the fan. So this is kind of an edge case, and I don't really think a lot of people would be running into this, but just because the functionality is there, it would be great to see that in the mobile app. Maybe this will be adjusted in a firmware update, and speaking of firmware updates, this light has a USB port on the back of it, so if there are any fixes or features that are added to this light in the future, you can use a USB thumb drive from your computer to your light to get those firmware updates applied. I haven't had to do this yet, but it is nice to know that if that time comes, you can update the firmware. The SZ150R also has a Bowens S-mount in the front. This is pretty standard for all lights made these days, but it is worth noting that if you have other Bowens S-mount attachments like reflectors or softboxes, those will also work with this light. Again, pretty standard, but I think it's worth mentioning. The build quality and design of this light is pretty awesome over the older versions of Godox lights. This updated version is a hard plastic and aluminum, and the yoke is also a nice aluminum that is sturdy. And even though this is a single clamp design, which I'm not the biggest fan of, it does hold softboxes really securely, and you don't have to wrench this thing down like some other lights I've had in the past. The design is something that I like overall of this light too. I like the fact that it has these giant grates on top for cooling. It's just all black with minimal RGB and branding on the sides. Some lights have just giant logos on the side, but I like that this is pretty sleek and it doesn't really jump out in your face other than that RGB little branding here on the wheel, which isn't terribly bad. So I like the build quality of the SZ150R much better than the previous version of the Godox lights, especially coming from my Godox SL60W. When it comes to powering options for the SZ150R, there's only one way to power it right now, and that is with the wall outlet like I have here. There's no way to use V-mount batteries with this light right now. I'm not sure if that's going to come in the future, but I would love to see this light be able to use V-mount batteries. I am traditionally not the biggest user of V-mount batteries, but if you're in a location where you don't have access to power, having those in a pinch is a lifesaver. Again, this isn't a way I will be using this light, but if this is something that you need, you're going to have a battery to go along with this, and this is going to be a third-party battery because I'm unfamiliar with any Godox batteries that you can use this with. Most people aren't going to use their lights with V-mount batteries, but some people like that, and I think it's worth mentioning here, especially with a light that is this expensive. I am a big fan of the bag that comes with this light though. It's a minimal design and it's a soft-sided case, but it's a soft-sided case that's sturdy enough to stand on its own and have sufficient protection for things while you're taking it from location to location or just storing it for long periods of time if you're not using it. I'd love to see a hard case included with these lights, but for this price point and the features you're getting, I think the bag that's included is pretty good. When it comes to video lights, there are more options available now than ever. That's a good thing if you understand what your needs are. For me, the RGB functionality, output levels, mobile app, and price are what led me to this light in the first place. Unlocking the ability to use RGB lights in your productions with the same lights you're using already is a huge benefit for me at least. This all comes down to how you'll be using your lights, and if the RGB functionality isn't something that you're going to use, you might want to check out bicolor or single color lights to save some money. But for me, the RGB, the color ranges, and the general operation of an RGB light that I can use with a mobile app was really helpful to me. The zooming isn't really going to be something that I'm going to use as much as I thought I would, because I use this light in a softbox and it's nice to have, but At the same time, I don't really see myself using it as much as maybe some other people would that use this as a hard light source using the reflector. But that being said, this is my favorite new light and I will be using this for my videos going forward. So what do you guys think of the SZ150R? Let me know in the comments down below, and let me know if there's any other lights you'd like me to take a look at as well. And if you enjoyed this video, check out some of my other videos and share them with a friend. If you didn't enjoy this video, share them with someone you don't like. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.